Hello APUSH students. If you sign up for AP United States history, better known to all those who suffer through it as hell, be prepared for late nights, little sleep, painful migraines and the occasional little voice inside your head that reminds you about how stupid you are. The New Right movement swept America during the 1980s. Conservatives were concerned with social issues such as abortion, pornography, homosexuality, feminism, and affirmative action. They wanted prayer in school and tougher penalties for criminals. This movement changed the balance of political parties in the United States. Ronald Reagan was a movie star, although he was also involved in politics. The Republicans wanted to take a hold of the White House, and with Carter's apparent inefficiency, Reagan took the majority of votes and became president. On Reagan's inauguration day, the Iranians released their hostages after 444 days of captivity. Reagan cut the federal budget and cut taxes mostly in social programs. On March 6, 1981, Ronald Reagan was shot.
12 days later.
But Reagan was soon released from the hospital and easily returned to work. Reagan supported supply-side economics, which reduced taxes and opened more opportunities for businesses to produce more goods, lower prices, increase consumer spending, and create more jobs. Reagan believed this would stimulate new investment, increase productivity, encourage economic growth, and reduce the federal deficit. This became known as Reaganomics. During the 1980s, the income gaps between the rich and the poor widened substantially. Reagan had provided the Pentagon almost $2 trillion, which ultimately led to an unbalanced federal budget and significantly increased the national debt. Reagan started a new arms race to outspend the Soviets. He announced a missile defense system called the Strategic Defense Initiative, also known as Israel invaded Lebanon and Reagan sent peacekeeping troops, but a suicide bomber killed 200 Marines, and so he withdrew his force. Reagan sent military advisors to El Salvador to support the pro-American government. A military coup on the island of Grenada killed the prime minister and brought Marxists to power, so Reagan sent forces. It was round 2 for Reagan's presidency that focused on world affairs.
It's time to do.
Mikhail Gorbachev became the leader of the Soviet Union in 1985. His policies of glasnost and perestroika required an end to the Cold War. Reagan and Gorbachev signed the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty. But first, American hostages were held by Muslim extremists in Lebanon, and Nicaragua was run by a left-wing Sandinista government. The Reagan administration secretly sold arms to Iran and diverted the sales to the rebels. Reagan claimed that he didn't know anything about it, which cast a shadow over his presidency. $200 billion in annual deficits added $2 trillion to the national debt, which was caused by Reagan's tax cuts and huge increases in military spending. The moral majority rose and became an aggressive political advocate of conservative causes. Reagan wanted to use the Supreme Court to fight affirmative action and Ward's Cove packing versus Antonia and Martin versus Wilkes, and fight abortion and Webster versus Reproductive Health Services, and Planned Parenthood versus Cassie. On Black Monday, October 19, 1987, the stock market had its largest one-day drop in history. Republicans nominated George H. W. Bush for the election of 1988, and later won. Buckle up folks, now it's time for some more world affairs. Thousands of pro-democracy demonstrators gathered in Tiananmen Square in China and protested against government, but was brutally crushed. Several communist regimes fell in the trash part of Europe, namely Poland, Hungary, East Germany, Romania, and Czechoslovakia. In December the Berlin Wall came down and reunited West and East Germany. In August, a military coup attempted to overthrow Gorbachev to preserve the communist system. In December, Gorbachev resigned as president and the Soviet Union dissolved into the Commonwealth of Independent States. Boris Yeltsin became the dominant leader of the CIS and the death of the Soviet Union ended the Cold War. As a result of reduced defense spending after the Cold War, America's economy suffered. South Africa at last freed Nelson Mandela, who 4 years later was elected as South Africa's president. Free elections removed the leftists and Sandinistas in Nicaragua from power. The civil war in El Salvador came to a close in 1992. Kuwait was invaded by Saddam Hussein and the United Nations Security Council condemned the invasion and demanded the immediate withdrawal of Iraq's troops. Hussein refused to comply by January 15 and the United States sent a massive international military deployment. On February 23, Operation Desert Storm began, but only lasted a whopping 4 days after Saddam was forced to sign a ceasefire on February 27. Because the Allies accomplished their goal of liberating Kuwait, Saddam still remained in power. Bush signed the Americans with Disabilities Act prohibiting discrimination against citizens with physical or mental disabilities. Bush's Department of Education challenged the legality of college scholarships targeted for racial minorities. Bush nominated Clarence Thomas to the Supreme Court who opposed affirmative action. Bush signed a major water projects bill that reformed the distribution of subsidized federal water in the West. In 1992 Bush was forced to increase taxes to generate revenue for the federal government after the unemployment rate increased and the federal budget deficit continued to grow.
Hey now, you're an all-star. Get your game on, go play. Hey now, you're a rock star. Get the show on, get paid.